Okay, as promised, we will begin today with the Adhan, which is just over 4 minutes.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
Okay, so that was Idris Aslami, and that was the visual is from a national park in Australia. It's just amazing. So again, what you've heard is the Adhan, or the Muslim call to prayer, and on the slide you can see that the English translation of the Adhan is printed. This call is heard 5 times a day in Muslim communities around the world, and the practice of prayer at the same time, at the same level, in the same direction, emphasizes the communal unity of the Ummah. This is a community, remember, defined by faith and adherence, not by nationality or ethnicity. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the third pillar, which is zakat, or compulsory giving. And this further emphasizes the sense of communal unity. The word itself means to be better in purity, or to increase. And the purpose of zakat is to promote and establish the equitable distribution of goods throughout the society. It's generally taken to be 2.5% of one's accumulated wealth. And this is important. Zakat is not an income tax. It's a redistribution of wealth. And that means that even if it was a rough year, even if profits were down, you're still obligated to donate 2.5% of your accumulated wealth, of everything you've saved and stored, and that could potentially be used to garner you more wealth in the future. Like if you have that potential, you have to give of that potential to others. The purpose is very much to help the poor of the community, to help to ensure that the needs of all are met. Because again, the Ummah is a community, and it is the responsibility of each member of the community to foster the flourishing of the whole, to recognize that all are equals in the eyes of Allah, and that it is in our power as humans to care for those who are, for the time being or generally, less fortunate than ourselves. So it helps the poor, but on the flip side, it also helps the wealthy by cleansing their wealth of sin through charitable giving. That's an explicit purpose behind this pillar. The practice of zakat is a way to counter the covetousness or avarice that the human is often inclined to in the face of abundance and of ownership. We have a tendency when we have a lot, especially when we have a lot of nice stuff, to sort of say, "Ooh, yes, it's mine, mine, mine," right? And this counters that. It cleanses the wealth that one has through this sense of charity, by filtering it through a sense of charity almost. Because all of this stuff belongs to Allah, and Allah is compassionate and merciful. It's our job as humans to manage the goods in a way that not only recognizes but lives into that. So that's the idea behind zakat. And this means also that not every person pays zakat. In order to be required to pay zakat, one must be a Muslim, adult, sane, and free, not enslaved or indentured. And one must have wealth in excess of one's own needs. So this excess is called the nisab, and that's what one considers when calculating and paying zakat. Individuals don't have to figure this out themselves. It functions something like taxes, in that there are calculators to help figure it out, and an Islamic banking industry set up to help collect and distribute zakat. But again, zakat is to be paid by those who are financially able. One is prohibited from paying zakat if doing so will harm one's own family, because this is about fostering the flourishing of the whole, and it doesn't help the community at large to deny one's own or one's family's needs. A similar point can be made about the fourth pillar, which is Saum, or fasting, during the month of Ramadan. The word itself means to abstain, and one does so with great intention to draw closer to Allah through a sense of lived empathy. Through a reality of lived empathy. The idea behind the fast is that nothing, not even your most taken for granted day-to-day station in life, is outside of the realm of religion. There's no sort of secular sphere. And that nothing, not the food or the drink or the sex or the smoke that sustains your body in this world, can be taken for granted. One fasts so that one knows on a personal, experiential level what it is to be wanting, to be hungry, or more generally without. But one does not fast if one is ill or pregnant or nursing or menstruating, and isn't required to fast until after reaching puberty. So fasting takes place from sunrise to sunset, during which time one must abstain, like I said, from food, drink, smoking, and sex. Those are the things that you don't get between sunrise and sunset during the month of Ramadan, during the fast. And because the Muslim calendar is a lunar calendar, the month of Ramadan moves through the year. And Saum is easier, it's an easier task when it falls in the winter months, when the days are shorter. than it is when it falls in the long days of the summer months, which it's currently cycling through the summer. It's July right now, so it's a harder fast. And at the end of each fast day, you're sort of looking at this image and thinking, wow, this is an image of a lot of food. I thought you said fast. Well, at the end of each fast day in Muslim communities, people tend to gather for a meal together to break the fast after sunset. And when Ramadan ends with Eid, there's a great communal celebration. It's a super festive event. Here's some children buying balloons. I mean, these are everywhere. It's like super happy party time. Eid is. Traditionally, people eat dates to break the fast because that's what Muhammad did. And again, Muhammad is the model for all things. He was the exemplary human being. So it's kind of living into that through, that people eat dates to finish it. And finally, we'll close today with the fifth and final pillar of Muslim practice. It's the pilgrimage to Mecca, or the Hajj. The Hajj is required of all Muslims who are both financially and physically able. If going on the Hajj means using money needed for your own family's needs, then it is frowned upon at best and generally prohibited. If you will endanger your own health by going on the Hajj, then again, it is frowned upon at best and generally prohibited. So this is one more way in which it's like, it's not that like, oh, going on the Hajj is considered something that one is honored for, one is celebrated within one's community for, but one we also recognize as a community that not everyone can do it, and you don't sort of the idea behind this, and in practice, the worst in us comes out at times, but the better angels towards which we aspire in ourselves is that you don't say, oh, you can't afford the Hajj, that makes you somehow less spiritual. Very much not. You support the folks who are physically or financially incapable of doing the full support, and the religious obligations take that into account. So for those who are both physically and financially able, the Hajj is a pilgrimage through which one injects oneself into the foundational history of Islam, through which one begins to see oneself and one's world through the perspective of that foundational history, the events that began this tradition. And the Ummah is through this bound by solidarity to the Quranic message. So the map you see here can be found at the website listed on the slide, and also here it's the BBC website. And I recommend that you check it out in closer detail. Pilgrims or Hajis cleanse themselves on the outskirts of Mecca, dressing in nondescript, unadorned robes. There's no jewelry, no perfume, no signs of status allowed. On the Hajj, the community is equal. The rich and the poor are not distinguishable from one another, and that's the point. And there's no separation of genders on the Hajj either. Separating the genders here would be a debacle because there are just so many people, but there's also no sex on the Hajj. Women do not cover their faces while on the Hajj, but as do men, they also do not adorn themselves in any way that might distinguish one member of the Ummah from another. This is a very equalizing field. So take a closer look at this. Visit this site. It'll take you through each of these specific moments, and you can sort of blow it up. So some of the parts of the foundational narrative that pilgrims live into is they run between the hills of Safa and Marwa, as did Hagar when searching for water, so that she could keep an eye on her son Ishmael. Which again, Hagar was the handmaiden of Abraham, gave birth to Ishmael. Ishmael is himself considered the family train through which Islam descends. It was Abraham had Isaac. Jews trace their line to Isaac. Abraham had Ishmael. Also, Muslims trace their line to Ishmael. So when she was looking for water, she had to run back and forth so she could keep an eye on her infant, who was laying in the shade under a bush. And so pilgrims run back and forth, as did she. They climb Mount Arafat and pray, invoking divine compassion, as did Muhammad. They sacrifice an animal to recall Abraham and Ishmael, again, who is the son who, for Muslims, Abraham nearly sacrificed. They throw stones at a symbolic representation of the devil. They often shave their heads in an ascetic sort of cleansing move. And take a look at this. These are highways turned into pedestrian thoroughfares. Al Arabiya reported that in 2013, over 3 million people went on the Hajj. It's crowded. And here we see the footbridges that have been built up around the Grand Mosque to help people get where they're going. I mean, it's a lot of people. And here's an aerial view of the mosque. Again, look at all those people. And finally we'll close with this. One of my favorite images, which you've probably seen in one form or another. It's a time-lapse photograph of pilgrims circling the Kaaba 7 times in a prayerful rite known as Tawaf. happens at the beginning and also generally at the end of the pilgrimage. If you're interested in seeing the pilgrimage in a little more detail, PBS has a virtual Hajj on their website, which is searchable and easy to find. And for a convert's perspective on the Hajj, if you've not yet read it, I strongly recommend Malcolm X's description of his own experience on the Hajj, which is included in his autobiography. And it's a longer book, but if you haven't read it, I mean, this is a classic of American literature. Definitely is a page turner. It's a little intimidating because it's big, but you'll finish it in 2 days. And it's near the end, but you could probably online search for Malcolm X and the Hajj, and you'll find that chapter. But so next time we'll cover a lot. We'll talk a bit about the Sunni-Shia split, and then to close this unit, our unit on Islam, we'll turn to the question of Western perceptions of Islam and the militant or resurgent Islam of the modern and contemporary period, and where it gets its roots. So that's next time.